Hi. The first mistake of speaking is not working out how you're going to get on the stage, but never mind. Anyway, it's great to see you all today, and thanks, Malvina, for the wonderful introduction. My name's Rose, and this is my one of my many fabulous team members, Grace.
Hello, everyone.
So Grace is our education and development worker, does a lot of work for us in schools, started life as a volunteer with us, won our Volunteer of the Year award, and then very quickly joined the paid team, which is a great sort of bonus for us. So we're going to tell you a little bit about our work and try to, obviously we're talking about hate crime, we're talking about some really horrible stuff. But what we try to do is to make people feel inspired and uplifted by the work that we do and the relationships that we build. The word conversation has already been used today, and I think that's a really important word. We base everything we do on that conversation. So hopefully you'll go away today thinking we've had a great conversation, and you'll have conversations with other people. And that's the really important thing, that we all have that power to influence others and to make other people feel safer, but also know where to go should something happen. And so when people call our helpline, we have conversations with them. We have conversations about how they're feeling. What do they need or want to happen? How can we help? And it is about empowering and trying to give people back that sense of power that if we can just use a general term, we call them the haters. The haters are trying to take away from people. The other thing that, many things we can take from Malvina talking to us, which was wonderful, but it is around the intersectionality. And we always say, you know, you look at me, you'll see one thing, or you might see, well, she's in her 60s, she's white, you know, she's a woman. But what you don't see is everything else that's around me. You know, you don't see my family life. You don't see my, partner or my friends. You don't see all the experiences I've had through my life, which have led me to be here today. And I always like to credit my dad in this, who died at the age of 89. But he was always just used to say to me, "What's the matter with people that they behave like this?" And I just think that's a really good way to look at it, that what's the matter with you? You know, why? And so he taught me around kind of diversity and love and, and respect, and about being kind. And I think that's a really, really good way to look at it, that there is no need for people to be so hateful. And actually, if more of us demonstrated our kindness on a day-to-day basis, we can do more to drown out their voices and their actions. So we use one of the many strap lines that we have, stop hate, start here. Well, where does stopping hate start? It starts here with me, and it starts here with you. And we can all do something. And I always say to people, it could be really something really small. You don't have to be out on the demonstration. You don't have to be sort of really out there supporting people. But you can do something. You can be kind. You can share something on social media. You can put a poster up. You can be warm to somebody and tell them about other services that might be able to help them. And one of the things that Grace will talk to you about is about how you can, if you witness hate crime, how you might be able to help. So we've all got a part to play, and we should never be scared of that part. Oh. Oh.
Could you define what a hate crime is?
I will. Good question, yes. The problem is I can't see my own slides now. Obviously, when we're talking about hate crime, we are talking about some horrible things. We won't go into a lot of that detail today, but it's always just be aware of the impact that might have on you. But we're a small group, so we can support each other. But if you need anything outside of this group, then let me know. Oh, what's happening to my clicker? Oh, So we're going to tell you a little bit about Stop Hate UK and around hate crime and the impact and some barriers to reporting and some other issues. But we've got very limited time, so we better crack straight on. Why is my clicker not working? Am I not clicking it in? Oh, here we are. So Stop Hate UK, can I move this slightly? Stop Hate UK is a leading hate and discrimination charity. Thank you. And we've been supporting people and challenging hate since 1995. We've got a huge vision, a world which is free from hate, harassment and discrimination. And we put those things together because your average person doesn't probably know what hate crime is. You know, it's quite a common thing. Why would you know? It sounds like crime. What is this? So a lot of people experience things that they don't put under this banner, so they don't report them. But people often were more likely to understand harassment and discrimination. And these things are often weaved in together and you can't always separate them. So it's really important that we address those things together. And something we've done recently in London Borough of Waltham Forest is we've launched a street harassment app. And they did it under their Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. But actually we think it's really, really important because I think a lot of people would understand what they've experienced is street harassment. They wouldn't necessarily call it hate crime. So I think it's an important development in the language that we use. So we've got a mission to combat hate, to support those affected and to educate towards a hate-free world. And obviously we're really proud that Baroness Doreen Lawrence is our patron. Since 2006, we've supported people for any aspect of their identity. And so it's been really important development that decision we made in 2006, which wasn't necessarily welcomed at the time and it was quite challenging. But I think people more and more are recognising that we are targeted for more than one aspect of our identity. And through our helpline, around 15% of calls will cover that. So we have a helpline. We do lots of work in schools and companies and in communities around raising awareness, making people feel, or helping people, not making them, helping people feel that somebody cares, because most people don't really know what hate crime is. They don't really know where to go, and they don't really think anyone really cares that much. So we introduced in 2006, whatever they call you, call us, to say that nothing is too small or insignificant to be reported, because if you don't report it, officially it never happened. And lots of people tell people, and that sometimes increases fear, but also increases hostility, maybe between groups, and it's not actually trying to deal with the problem. And what we're trying to do is stop things escalating. The racist murder, the homophobic murder, they don't come out of nowhere. They start with something. They start with graffiti or name calling or just trying to make somebody feel unwanted. So that's why we launched our helpline, so that we could have conversations and reach people that just need to talk about what's happened to them. They may not want to talk to the police. They may just want someone to listen and believe. And many people say to us, thank you for believing. So a hate crime, what is a hate crime? And it's actually a really controversial area of the law. Because people think we're the thought police. The number of times I'm called a raving lefty as well as thought police, but I'm not quite sure whether the first one is an insult or not. But anyway, the hate crimes are any incidents that breach criminal legislation. So when people say, "Oh, we're all too PC," and you say no, for it to be recorded as a hate crime by the police, a crime has to have taken place. So the hate is an aggravating factor. So the crime could be public order, violence against the person. They are the top two that came out this year in the stats from the police. And public order can obviously quite easily move to violence against the person. But in law, not enough time today to go into all this, but there are differences in how the law deals with the different identities. But in law, they recognise disability, faith, race, sexual orientation and transgender identity as what they call the 5 monitored strands. But we support people who are affected by any aspect of their identity because not everyone thinks they fit neatly into that. So it's really important that we're trying to remove every possible barrier to people talking to us by saying, whatever it is, just give us a call. We're here. Very quickly, we have some data. We are showing a percentage increase. This only came out last week, a percentage increase across all the areas of identity. And you can see that gender identity, that's transgender identity, that they had the biggest increase. But if you look at the figure, it's gone up to 4,355 a year recorded by the police. I've met trans people who would say they experience 6 incidents a day. So if every trans person in this country, or a person who identifies as trans in this country, maybe about 500,000 people experience 1 incident a year, we'd have 500,000 there. So I think we have it's very obvious that this is very underestimated. And, people, I've talked to people in Leeds, if I walk down that street because of my colour of my skin, I will experience 6 incidents, just in that one street. So in England and Wales, we had 109,843 recorded by the police. We've got a long way to go to get people to speak up about what's actually happening to them. The really important thing, I must hand over to Grace, but the really important thing about what's different about hate crime, it's not what you've got. I'm not trying to steal your phone or break into your house. I'm doing it because I don't like you. I've got some hostility towards an aspect of your identity. And that's what sometimes makes it controversial. But you've got to remember, a crime is still having to be committed. But at Stop Hate UK, we take away this, is it a crime or is it not a crime, by the whatever they call you, call us. Nobody needs to worry whether the police will record it as a crime. We want to help and support regardless. So this is my last slide. Yes? Okay, yeah, great. So very, very quickly, the other reason why it's important is that we know that through the crime survey, British Crime Survey, we know that it hurts more. So if you experience a hate crime because of any aspect of your identity, you might feel annoyed. I'm annoyed, don't really say very much. So actually 48% of people who were targeted their identity said they felt annoyed, whereas 67% random crime said annoyed. But now I'm angry. And anger is a very different emotion. And they're more or less the same. And that is different than the crime survey before. And I was really shocked at that. Why are they the same? It used to be hate crime was more. The anger you feel because of being targeted because of your identity goes deeper and will last longer because it results in fear. 45% compared to 17% for random crimes. Anxiety, 34 to 14. Loss of confidence, 42 to 19. Difficulty sleeping. You can see we're entering territory where you're no longer able to thrive because you can't manage your relationships, your work, your study. Some people say they're too scared to take their children to nursery. So there's lots of things happening here that affect the individual for deeper and longer, but not just them. It affects people they know, affects our communities and our society. Twice as many people said they experienced depression after the impact of hate crime. So, now I've depressed you completely, I'm going to hand you over to Grace, who's going to be more uplifting and talk to you about, more of the themes of today and how we contribute.
Okay. Hopefully this is on. Yes, it is. So I've got some notes today. I'm a bit less experienced than those, so excuse me if I think I might be double mic'd now. Shall I have you on? So excuse me if I'm looking down a little bit, but yeah, we wanted to sort of break down kind of when we were asked to speak at the event, we were thinking about what ways do we as a charity show kindness, compassion and well-being? How do those three things kind of link with what we do and our vision and mission. So our training services reach children, young people and adults across the country, working in various sectors. That's more sort of my area now, and I go into schools and speak to young people about hate crime, digital, being safe online, and being upstanders, something we'll go into a little bit afterwards. But through our training, we champion kindness. We're encouraging other people to be upstanders rather than bystanders. Like I said, something I'll go into a bit more depth on. But that's, a huge part of our charity is championing those things. We also equip teachers with the necessary tools to show kindness and care when dealing with incidents of hate in schools, which is really important as well. We know, being open about things that we experience that are harmful is really difficult, and having that, person to turn to is really important. So it's important to start, go all the way up, and equipping teachers with that is really important too. We encourage a message of spread love, not hate. Show kindness towards one another in school, out of school, online is something that's huge. And we provide equality, diversity, inclusion training within businesses to ensure that employers are shown kindness and treated fairly at work. Compassion. So in the first moments people experience an incident, our specialist helpline team show them compassion when it's needed most. I'd kind of say they're a mix of a listening ear, a supportive friend, and then a knowledgeable advisor rolled into one. They are there for people. They're showing compassion on a daily basis. And you can see at the bottom there some quotes that we've received from hitline callers, and there's more of those on our website as well. They offer vital, emotional and practical support. They capture incident details and provide next steps to ensure that people feel safe and supported. They can also make referrals to the police, local authorities or local support agencies. So they provide people with more additional support and guidance if they need it. And our hate crime reporting helpline is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which is unique and amazing. And that means we're always there for people. We show compassion all year round. There's no kind of limits to when you can get in touch with us, which I think is just amazing. And wellbeing, so across our charity, there's a very strong focus on mental and physical wellbeing. Unfortunately, in this day and age, and with the increase of technology and in the digital world, we're sadly all exposed to hate, whether that's in public or online. Sadly, online hate is a consequence of that. So we actually do a session in schools called Our Digital World, and we discuss ways to look after our mental and physical well-being online. Some of the tips we offer are things like protecting yourself and others by reporting hateful posts. We actually do an activity on counter messaging as well. So, having the confidence to recognise fake news or media bias and actually call it out, provide a counter message, put positive alternate messages out there online instead of, potentially sort of feeding into the negative ones. We say avoid doom scrolling. It's very easy to sort of get lost in scrolling all the time, but take a break. Social media has had harmful effects on my mental health at times, and you just have to, take a break from it. And we have conversations and discussions with young people about that. And we encourage them to reach out for support when it's needed, whether that's a family member, friend, teacher, or even calling us. It's horrible if you've been affected by something and not being able to share that with someone can have, really detrimental impacts on mental health and well-being. So being able to, report it to someone is really important. We're going to get onto reporting as well. So here we've got a quote from Dr. Stevie Jade Hardy and Professor Neil Chakraborty, and it's about the cumulative impact of hate. We know it has a cumulative impact on our mental health, and I always say hate doesn't just impact an individual. It's not all about individual circumstances. It adds up. It's very cumulative. So they've said here that it's important to recognise that in most cases, a victim's mental ill health has not been caused by a single incident of hate crime, Rather, many victims have been made to feel different and have experienced multiple forms of discrimination and hostility throughout their lives. It is these individuals who need specialist emotional support in order for the victim to be able to unpack and deal with the layers of hurt. I think that phrase there, layers of hurt, is really significant. That's that intersectionality that, Rose discussed. It layers up, it adds up, and it's, really important to be able to have an outlet to speak to someone about this, to be able to unpack it and to be supported. So that's something, that we can provide people. So I mentioned earlier that I'd come on to what an upstander is, in case you haven't come across the term before. So different to a bystander, which is someone who doesn't speak up or act when they see acts of intolerance or prejudice or discrimination, they turn a blind eye, they go about their business. An upstander is defined as someone who recognises when something's wrong and does something about it. They act to make it right. And when we stand up for what is right and do our best to help and support people, we're being socially responsible. We're positively impacting, making a positive impact on the world. And I always find this triangle a really good sort of explanation. Bystanders and perpetrators are the same almost. They're at the same level. You've got to do something about it, to make a change and to make a difference. And I like the question here, which role do you choose? I have, spoken before with colleagues about sometimes being a bit afraid growing up to challenge things and speak out about things that I didn't feel were right. And I now feel like full circle. I'm going into schools encouraging young people to do just that. And, I always say doing something is always better than doing nothing, whether it's small, whether it's, I don't know what to say in the moment, I'll come away and report it, because we don't always have the right things to say, but always do something. That's a huge, huge thing that we sort of stand for. And there's a quote there from Elie Wiesel, who is a political activist and he was actually a Holocaust survivor. And that quote, is in a lot of our presentations, and I think it's so powerful. What hurts the victim most is not the cruelty of the oppressor, but the silence of the bystander. We unpack it sometimes in some sessions, and the feedback is just so fascinating. I think that just summarises it all up. It cuts deep when somebody does nothing, when somebody turns a blind eye. So, yeah, if you can take anything away today, please, encourage others around you to be upstanders in all incidents of injustice. I don't know if we've got a slide on reporting, but yeah, a way that you can do that is by reporting to us. We've got a helpline, we've got online services to report online to us. So yeah, reporting incidences is hugely important. I'll pass back over to you, Rose.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you. That was fabulous. Thank you. So I think we've got a short session now on any questions and anything that has made you want some more information or anything that was unclear. Oh, lots of hands. Yes.
Perfect. First of all, can we give them a round of applause before the question starts? Yeah. And I just wanted to say that, first of all, the correlation to mental health and well-being and really, really does strike a chord. But I'll pass it. Please introduce yourself and say your name and your organisation.
Okay. My name's Nisha. I work at the marketplace with young people. So it is something that I've discussed with them. But I was just thinking to explain to the children or the young people a bit more about what happens once you guys get the report, sort of thing. If that's not too difficult to answer.
I always say it depends on what you want and need.
Okay.
So we can just sometimes we just listen. Sometimes we're giving you emotional support, sometimes very practical support. It's always at the pace of the person who's calling. Sometimes people aren't ready to disclose everything initially, so they may be called back again. I would say our job on that helpline is to listen, but also to try to give people the confidence that they can call us at any time and explore what they need and want. Obviously, if there's a safeguarding issue, then that's obviously another matter. But we actually get very few safeguarding concerns, really. But yeah, So it's what people need and want. Sing it, please.
Oh, well, that might make it a bit less clear. I just wanted to ask you about misogyny, because my understanding is there's been a debate about whether it is a hate crime. I just wonder where we are, because I don't know what's happened.
No, we're probably the same. There's been a debate for some time. Some police forces are now recording it as a hate crime, but actually they're calling it more gender-based hate, because it is about they don't want to obviously exclude. Probably was a small number of men that are targeted because of their gender, and again the intersectionality around sexual orientation and everything. So, in the last decade or so, there's been two inquiries by the Law Commission looking at the differences between the different the legislation that governs the different strands and what else should be included. And the government haven't taken either of those forward. I know things about, say, alternative subculture. The answer was that we didn't think there was enough evidence of people like goths, punks, emos being targeted. So through the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, they're trying to collate that information now. But we are asked by a lot of the areas we work in to call it gender-based hate, but obviously we know what it is. And so on the main, in the London, so the Waltham Forest street harassment, I think, app, which is going to be launched soon in Newham, and the Borough of Newham, will, I think, bring out more of that. And we've got somebody on our team who's a retired police inspector who's been with us about 9 years or so now, and dealt with hostage negotiation, some really heavy stuff, and hate crime. And he is shocked by the reports that come in through the street harassment app. And so I think probably women are more likely to recognise it. I think the street harassment label is going to help us understand the problem. But for somebody with that level of experience to be shocked, to actually say this is, I think it really tells you something. But I don't think there's any appetite to change the law. But police forces, a lot of them are beginning to record it, but look out for more what's called gender-based hate. And we have got a campaign that will be coming out shortly to raise awareness in relation to our service. Thank you.
Any more questions? I've got a question. I think it's something you highlighted earlier on around the impact of hate crime on our mental health and well-being. I'm just trying to think about collective trauma when it comes to intergenerational legacy of hate crimes, when it comes to the Black community or the South Asian community. When we think these are norm, we stop reporting because we know that we have no result of anything ever happening for us in our favor. What would be your advice for people who have lost hope in the system, who have done everything you said, called, reported, took dialogue, kept diaries, took pictures? I'm saying this as someone like me who have reported, again, all those different things. How do you still keep that mental strength to just keep speaking to this void that doesn't see your pain? So, and what's the correlation on some work you might be doing around mental health and well-being, if that would be great.
We're asked all the time, what's the point of reporting? And, all different reasons. People say, we'll sort it out ourselves, don't worry. But I always worry about how retaliation will play out. What's the point of reporting? It is a really hard one to answer because we're not going to make massive changes on that one report. Occasionally we will, for that individual. But we are dealing with structural racism, we are dealing with structural discrimination, and I think that it is still, unfortunately, I would use the word rife in our society. So it is a difficult one, but part of the answer I would give is that if we don't report it, what will happen? And I would think if we don't report it and try to get some advice and support and build that bigger picture of the problem, then I would suggest that the only thing that might happen is it could get worse because things escalate. And if we think back to, if we think back to the murder of Stephen Lawrence, there was evidence in that area, for a long time that there was, racism was a problem. But no one took any, they left the racist graffiti up, no one took any action. So basically, we might not make a massive change. We might be able to make a little change for that individual. But if we don't, basically what's happened is will go ignored and unnoticed. It didn't happen as far as any decision makers are concerned. And so nothing's going to change in terms of people's awareness and resources and support. And I suppose the feeling within communities and that impact, the layering will just be amplified. So there isn't a simple answer. We're not going to undo everything that goes on by one report, but we might be able to provide some support for that individual. We might be able to make it safer for them, and that's what we're trying to do. But do you want to?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really difficult question because, I feel that way, that collective way, and I think it really was only brought to light with me with the murder of George Floyd and going to Black Lives Matter protests. It's a bit of a cyclical story, really, because I went to a lot of the protests in the summer of 2020, actually saw you speak, and then I remembered that Stop Hate UK had come into my school years and years ago, like 8 years ago, and that's when I thought, no, I want to make a change. Action speaks louder than words, and the Black History Month slogan this year is time for action, not words. So I think it is hard because it's hard to keep hope, but involving yourself in doing something does help with that. And you see in schools now, which I think is really eye-opening, young people that are so sort of disgusted by some of the things that are going on. I hear verbal shocks, shocked at some of the things that are going on, and there seems to feel like there's a real sort of collective responsibility now to actually change this and to do something about it. So I think it is hard to keep that hope, but like Rose said, reporting is doing something, even though it is difficult, but the wider hope is change is happening as well, I think, amongst young people.
Yeah, and same being that bystander, not colluding with what's going on, making sure that you challenge. And I was, this is why I have very few friends left and don't get invited to parties because I have to challenge, because that's who I am and that's what my job is as well. So, but it's around learning how you can safely challenge and be confident to challenge. And so at Stop Hate UK, we challenge each other, because we have an extremely diverse team. And we know people say, oh, I can't keep up with language. Well, just try to listen and be respectful. And so what we'd say, if I said something and Grace said, oh, Rose, that's really, not what we should be saying, Grace has got to have the confidence and strength to know that she can safely challenge me, and I've got to have the confidence and strength to receive it. And that's the sort of culture we build with Stop Hate UK, and that's what we try and encourage other people to do. But because if you are that bystander, as far as the person who's being targeted is concerned, you agree. And if you don't challenge, you are colluding. And I think we just all have a role to play in that.
Okay. I can see hands up, but I know time is fast spent, and I'm really sorry. I feel so bad. Okay. Go. Just, there's okay. You know what? Permission to the two speakers who are running the workshop. It's your call. Is it okay for them to ask the questions? Is that okay? I'm sorry, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Mine is so short and very basic. I work for the council, a lot of front-face working environment. Just checking how accessible Stop Hate UK is. A lot of the customers that we refer and people I work with don't speak English as their first language. Do you have interpreters, translators and so on the line?
I mean, we have people who speak other languages on the line, but obviously you won't not necessarily going to get the language you want when you call. So if you leave your name, your language and your phone number, we will arrange a three-way conversation with an interpreter.
And the website, how accessible is that for as
Well,
well?
the website, in terms of language, is in English, but obviously Google Translate can help to an extent, but we haven't got the resources to be able to provide it in other languages. We are part of a project called On Your Side, which is around Southeast Asian hate crime, and there is information on that On Your Side UK, which is in other languages.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is why donating, supporting and sending information about Stop Hate UK. And if you're a volunteer or young person that can help diversify the language and can do some coding, please see how you can sign up. I'm actually serious. Sign up and see how you can make a difference. Next question, Sally. Any mic? Yeah, your voice can echo, but he's coming to you, he's coming. And then I've got my beautiful sister.
More of a personal question, really. Sorry, I'm Sally. I work with Marvina at Forum Central on the Trauma Informed programme, so I'm really interested in this work. But in terms of a personal question, and before this role, I was a primary school teacher, and we had conversations around being an upstander rather than a bystander. And what I noticed in those conversations, the questions that the children asked me was that, but what if something happens to me? There's an element of safety. And I feel that as well sometimes. I don't want to put myself in a situation where, and that's selfish, but, I would see threat. And I've got an example of this a couple of weeks ago. I was on a bus with my partner in East Yorkshire along the coast, and as he got off, I got a comment off 3 men. And, I'm not getting these every day. I think it's the first comment I've probably had, I don't know, in however long. And it really, really upset me because I didn't feel safe. I did because I had my partner with me. So I just, it's awful that this happens to people all the time. But I suppose if he wasn't with me, I wouldn't feel safe. But going back to my original thing is, if he would have if he would have got involved and been this upstander in that situation, would they have the safety of him being, do you see where I'm going with that? So I don't know whether you've got any ideas around that, or, in terms of the children and me telling them what they can do and keeping themselves safe as well at the same time.
We've got a lot of information on our website about being an upstander and about keeping yourself safe. Keeping yourself safe is not about being a coward. This is obviously absolutely paramount. And so any intervention, we always say, you have to make sure you're safe to do so. So that's why things like you can use our app, maybe you could record something, at a distance. Maybe you just keep yourself at a safe distance and call the police if necessary. Or you keep yourself at a safe distance, and then when the incident is over, you go and ask the person if they're okay. We've got stories of people on public transport of just going up and sitting near somebody, smiling, starting a conversation. There's distraction techniques as well. So there's a lot of things that we can do, but absolutely you need to keep yourself safe. And it's interesting when Marvina was talking, my eldest son is autistic and ADHD, dyslexic and dyspraxic. And he used to say to me, Mum, I think you need to watch yourself, because people would, sometimes his behaviour would make some very, very big, really brave men start confronting him in the street. And so I would always put myself, up to these men, and so there are times that everything takes over. Protection of my son was paramount, but I put myself at risk. But we're not asking people to do that. It's about making sure you're safe. And sometimes our instinct might put us in a difficult situation, but we would never ask anybody to do that.
I was just going to add as well, when we speak in schools about being an upstander, we have a traffic light like slide, and I can send it to you, which is, you know, red, don't intervene, withdraw and report. Amber, okay, maybe you could do something, and then green, you know, is it safe? Do you know the people? Could you speak to them without there being any conflict or confrontation? You know, but assessing safety is really important, so I can send that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say let's give them a round of applause. I know the questions are coming in and people want to ask, but let's just show some more love, louder love to Stop Hate UK, please.